So yeah, so after the shorts thing, like what happened? I mean you mentioned to me that you kind of left it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you want to explain like that part as well, like why you left it and then what happened after that.
Yeah, I think there was two main reasons. The first reason was that when I went to the UK, timings were difficult to schedule with the team, and I think the second reason was that after reaching the Straits Times article and after kind of getting that business to business deal with another company, I realized that the reality of things didn't match the initial vision that I had, which was to create advanced fashion technology with like microchips in your shorts and your pants, things like that. But maybe I'll pick it up another day. But realizing that limitation, I thought, okay, I mean, I think it's probably time for me to sort of move on, yeah. And that team, check them out, Man's Best Friend. They're still the team working on it. There's still people I respect a lot, and they're still, I would say, my friends. So they're still continuing that. So that's great. Then that's the reason why I stopped that. Did you also want to go into what happened after that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like what happened and then like how did it lead up to your next thing?
Then I got bored when.
Also, you weren't doing anything for a while.
I mean, I was in law school.
Right,
I was in law school, but then law school is not the most interesting in the world. Interesting thing in the world. At Oxford. So I started to get bored again, and I was thinking like, okay, what's sort of the next project? But I think I learned a lot like from Man's Best Friend. I learned a lot from that. I think what I learned was to really think carefully about, don't just do things that you think are cool, but think about something that maybe you can really add a unique perspective. Because I probably wasn't the best guy to start that venture, right? It would have been good if you start like a fashion venture. It's probably good if you really have a passion for fashion and not just because you think that having tech in your clothes would be cool. So that was one thing. So I did reflect quite deeply about, okay, like, as a university student, I don't have that many like working skills, right? What was it that really resonated with me? And I think that was actually education. I mean, as many Singaporean watchers, that our education system is very rigorous. I used to go for a lot of tuition, tuition growing up. So, and then I think that's the norm. So I thought like, hey, I've been through all of that, right? Is there sort of a unique perspective that I can add to learning, right? To education, and at the same time, this was around the same time when I think data is obviously becoming quite a hot topic nowadays, right? And then I thought, as the technology develops, one way to really enhance education is to add an element of data, right? So that the educators and the parents can actually tailor education for the students. Because so the real breakthrough was when I reflected on my childhood. Much of it had actually been spent playing these multiplayer online games, and I was like, I don't know, for me it was like, hey, that's it. It's amazing. Imagine if people could play these multiplayer online games, receive virtual rewards, right? Maybe get a cool hat in the game, things like you could get in Club Penguin if they did well in class, and how cool would it be if parents can actually reward kids with those, like with in-game currency, in-game items for doing the chores at home, or just being like, in general, a good kid. I thought that just integrating that virtual world, which can really engage children, as well as the physical world, and collecting all the data would be really amazing. So I guess that's how that idea really started in my head. Yeah.
And then like how did you kind of like, so what is it now? Like, is it a full product already, or? Like...
So we actually have a minimum viable sort of product out there. I don't know if parents watch this, but basically if you go to the website for minimum viable product, you can actually send your child on this like 15 to 20 minute adventure where he makes choices in the story. There's artwork and everything as well. And at the end of the story, we can send you a 15-page report on your kid. Talking about his personality and talking about his learning preferences, his strengths, his growth areas, all that kind of stuff lah. Yeah, and that's really the precursor to the final game lah, because eventually when we create the game, you know, the initial story, you answer those questions and then you'll be given sort of a pet in the game, kind of like Pokemon, you know, you get like a pet, but our pet is based on sort of your own like unique traits, and you'll be assigned like a unique sort of clan based on your traits, kind of like Harry Potter, you know, the sorting hat, like Gryffindor, Slytherin, but we use real science to do it, like, we don't just, that's where it kind of is at the moment.
But okay, so how do you get to this point of having this MVP? Like, I mean, I know that you're not like computer guy, or you're not an artist, or so. How did it come to this? So you had the idea, and then what happened?
So I think it's interesting, you know. I guess you slowly. I started with that book, right, and you slowly build up in the complexity of the projects that you can undertake. I think so with the book, it was just me and my friend. I don't think it wasn't a real company. But with Man's Best Friend, you know, we had a team, 5 or 6 people. I think what I really learned about that was how to work as a team, right? That's super important for a startup. How do you, firstly, how do you find the right people who are passionate about the idea that work with you, and how do you sort of coordinate the operation? Because in any big company, it doesn't make sense if everyone just does what they want to do, right? There needs to be some sort of order. So coming off Man's Best Friend, I already had I kind of understood how do I pitch to other people to get them interested in the idea. How do I interview them to see if they're truly interested, if they have the right sort of skill set. So I took those skills, and Oxford actually used to have an incubator program where people who have sort of entrepreneurial ideas and who are just interested in entrepreneurship kind of meet up, right? And they form teams. So I went there, and then I knew I needed like a computer scientist to build the product. I probably needed also like a business guy to focus more on the business things. And then I just started talking to people. And then I formed like an initial team there. And we kind of like, during the incubator program, there's a demo day where you pitch your idea in front of like these investors, right? Who aren't investing, but they're judging the competition. And if you win, you get like $10,000, right? And somehow we won. Somehow we won. That we had no product, nothing. We just pitched the idea. We said, hey, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Somehow we won, got $10,000. Unfortunately, that initial team kind of disbanded afterwards because one of them was actually like a lecturer at Oxford. So he was a psychology lecturer. We brought him in for his expertise to profile the kids and stuff like that. But he wanted to go into academia, so the team kind of like dismantled. But during COVID, when I returned back to Singapore, basically I just hit up like some of my friends lah, right? I had a friend in high school who I had a good friend in high school, Joel, who turns out he was teaching assistant at NUS for computer science. He's really into entrepreneurship as well. And I called him up, and then just at first there was the two of us. I had this other friend back in my old university, Yale and US, Akil, who was he did internships at like Goldman Sachs. He was into like business, like into finance. I spoke to him, and he was really into entrepreneurship as well. And I think the final piece of the puzzle was when I reached out to I was interning at a hedge fund previously, and there was also this Cambridge education grad, math grad, who was there to help with the algorithmic trading. And it's interesting because we didn't really talk during the internship, which was many years ago, but what I remembered during the internship was just hearing that she was into education, and she was also like an international school teacher. So when I came back to Singapore, I reached out to her, and she was also really interested in entrepreneurship, and it was the 4 of us, and it's been the 4 of us ever since in the main team. But the wider team has grown to about 20 people. And it's amazing right? In this Zoom era, we have people from Canada, we have people from the States, we have people from UK, we have people from Singapore, we have people from Philippines, all working on this project So
how do you even meet these people? I mean, like, especially the Zoom people.
So Yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs always says this, right? He says that, and not just Steve Jobs lah, but the first people that start on the idea are the most important, because if they are passionate, and if they are good human beings, they will know other people, and they will be able to judge the qualities of those others, and they'll be able to get more people on the team. So I think from the initial 4 of us, maybe we're just very into entrepreneurship. We know like-minded people. So we just looked into our own networks. So it slowly grew and grew, right? And it's very international as well, because Patricia, who's the education co-founder I met at hedge fund, she's actually Romanian, right? So she has friends in Europe.
Wow.
Akhil is Singaporean, but he grew up in the UAE, right? So he went to an international high school there. So then we found like our Canadian sort of artist Ian sort of from there. So I guess it's really about the initial group of people. If they are the right people, they'll get you where you need to be. Yeah.
Right. And what's your role in this thing?
So I'm the CEO. Okay. I mean, it's not as glamorous. It's not like I always call it chief everything officer.
Right.
Not chief executive officer, because you really just do everything, right? Whether it's whether it's speaking to some potential like VC investor, or whether it's like thinking of how to respond to sort of complaints about our product late night. You kind of have to do everything. Yeah, that's kind of my role, because I don't really have my technical skill set, which isn't super technical because I'm currently a law student, is also to look at some of the legal doc. But again, I'm just a hustler lah, to be honest. Yeah.
And why do you think like these people choose to like work with you? Because it's your idea at first, right? And then like you just rope them in. So what do you think makes you someone that they want to follow? I
mean, I wouldn't say it's my idea. I would say I had this initial idea. People came on, and every single guy who comes in, even if it's an employee, they shape the idea. So I like to think that it's our idea. And I also, I don't necessarily see it as, at least for the 4 of us, I don't see it as a situation of them like working for me.
Yeah.
I think it's like, we're working together. We all have the same decision-making power. I think that's just how our company is structured. Different companies will be structured differently. But I guess why people would even want to work together with me, why they would even want to believe me in the first place, again, it comes down to like your own like unique special role. I think one thing about me is that I'm a bit of a dreamer. So even when, that's why even when we had nothing back in Oxford, that competition, managed to pitch the idea and win. So I think one thing about me is that I've always been even when there's nothing there, I can always, I'll always generate many sort of ideas, which isn't always like super helpful.
Right, yeah,
especially for people who need to actually do the work. It's not super helpful for me to be saying, hey, we could do A, we could do B, we could do C. Sometimes people just want to know, hey, what do you want to do, right? But I think just the ability to keep generating these ideas to solve problems, I think that's one thing, right? Because you come up with discussion points for the rest of people to look at, to think about. I think the other thing that I've learned is that, at least for me, like leadership is really about I think it's about getting respect from other people. I don't really buy into the idea that you follow someone because he's like a visionary or something like that.
Right.
At least that's not what I've seen. But for me, it's about you follow someone because you trust them at the end of the day. You know that they'll be out there and get the work done. And that also means that as a leader, you're there to sort of serve. You're not there to say, hey, do this, do that, that doesn't really work. To be a leader, I think you need to show that you're willing to work harder than everyone else, right? So that people sort of feel inspired and they're also willing to, take their time out at the end of the day.
Right.
So I would just to summarize the response to that question, I think it's sort of working hard, and it's also just being spontaneous and generating ideas. And part of being spontaneous is always being optimistic,
right?
Which could be a psychological sort of trait.
Yeah,
yeah.
I see.
Because when you have nothing, you really need to be optimistic. If you don't believe in yourself, no one will really believe in you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's it for that. Yeah, I have one more general question. So what would you say to someone who is thinking of doing something different, like living in Asian society? Our parents or our teachers may kind of like put that kind of like stereotype that to be successful you have to go to school and that kind of thing. But I know for like people like, maybe not for you because you're actually doing well in school, but for like some people, they may not like see like school as a place where they can thrive, so they may want to try something else. So what would you kind of say to those people? Like, what advice would you give?
So I would say, at the end of the day in your life, many people will say many different things, right? But it depends also. I mean, I'm not very religious as well. So to me, the ultimate judge of whether or not, when your time is up, the ultimate judge of how successful or how happy you are in your life is you, right? So to a certain extent, the things that people say, don't take them as authoritative advice, because it will never be. And if you've relied on those statements, hoping that following what your teachers say, or even following what your parents say, if you rely on that advice, hoping that it will bring you happiness, and it doesn't, right? You will just be filled with a lot of sort of resentment at the end of the day, and you won't be happy, right? So I think the first thing to say is we all know ourselves quite well. We need to follow what we know makes us happy, what we know that we are good at. We do need to follow that path, but that doesn't mean we don't listen to what these people are saying, because as your parents, as teachers, hopefully they have your best interests at mind, and they're not trying to lie to you or anything. So every time someone sort of advises me not to do something, I just think like, okay, why is he saying this? And if he's genuine, does he come from a perspective that does he have like 20 years experience as an entrepreneur, and he failed, and I can't see that sort of perspective, right? And then I sort of like consider, just take things sort of very objectively.
Yeah.
So that's my feedback for like how to treat, what other people say. I think the other thing I would say is that comes from just you yourself, and is not related to feedback. If you want to do something different, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's an unusual career path, just try it out, because you never know. You never know until you really do try it out. And especially for entrepreneurship, you can read about it in books and stuff to try and decide whether or not you should do it. You can watch YouTube videos to decide whether or not you want to do it. But you never really know what it's like, because I think, as Marcus knows, one thing about entrepreneurship is it's like jumping off a cliff and you're building the plane on the way down. And you won't know what building the plane feels like unless you experience it for yourself. Yeah. So
that's pretty inspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're young, actually university is the best time to try things out. You don't necessarily have the pressure of, hopefully you don't have the pressure of putting food on the table, right? Everyone is kind of like doing their own thing. I think you should really spend those years in university figuring out what you want to do, what inspires you for the rest of your life, and you spend the next 50, 60 years just doing exactly that. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so thank you everyone for watching. I hope you like this episode. I definitely enjoyed talking to Nicholas. It was really nice, and thank you for coming down on a Saturday morning to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing better to do. Yeah.
Okay, so if you like this episode, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions for Nicholas or anything, do remember to put them down in the comments below. And check out the description as well, because we'll be putting some of the names and the brands that Nicholas has mentioned in the comments below. And do support him in his venture. I'll leave that in the description below as well.
All right.
Okay, and if that's all, then I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's great.